Hi again, welcome back to another lecture for General Physics 2. This one deals with the mathematical models that we use to describe the behavior of circuits that contain both resistors and capacitors, which are more commonly known as RC circuits. If you've done the lab, you got to experiment or watch an experiment involving both a charging capacitor and a discharging capacitor. I think the mathematical structure of the discharging capacitor is slightly easier to think about, so we're going to start there in this discussion. If you've ever used a camera that has a flash unit in it, that flash unit typically has a capacitor that's associated with it. One of the worst shocks I got in my life was playing around with one of these disposable cameras in a teacher workshop and touching the two terminals of a capacitor that turned out to have been charged. So here the person is holding a capacitor that's connected to that light bulb, and when you have the charged capacitor, when you flip the switch, it will discharge through the light bulb, causing the flash to go off. Then it needs to connect to a power source to charge the capacitor back up, and you can repeat that cycle. But all you really need for a discharging capacitor is shown in the circuit diagram at right. You need a capacitor and a resistor connected in some sort of loop. So in this one, the capacitor has been charged until it has charge plus Q on the positive plate, minus Q on the negative plate. And if you close the switch, you then provide a path for the capacitor to discharge. Part of that discharge flow passes through the resistor. So if that resistor is your flash bulb, the flash bulb could go off. If we plot how much charge is on the capacitor per time, we'll note that over time, as it's discharging, that charge goes down, but it doesn't go down at a linear rate. It goes down really quickly in the beginning, but then the rate at which it discharges slows down more and more the longer that time goes by. And this shape, you may have seen before, is described by a natural exponential function. And so we can write a function for the charge here that says charge at any time is equal to Q0, that's the amount of charge I had to start with on my capacitor, times the natural exponential function raised to the power of minus T over RC. In that expression, T stands for time, R is the value of the resistance that is in the discharge loop, and C is the value of the capacitance. Notice that if I increase the R or the C or both, I increase the amount of time it takes for this to discharge. So if I put more resistance in the loop, it'll be harder for the charges to flow. It's going to take longer time for that capacitor to discharge. If I put a bigger capacitor in the loop, it will store more charge. So there will be more charge, which will take more time to discharge through that circuit. From the reverse, you can decrease resistance or decrease capacitance, and that will make the circuit discharge more quickly. So charge is what we're really talking about on a capacitor plate, but it's really difficult to measure the amount of electric charge in a circuit. And so more commonly, you actually see people change this model into one that relates voltages. Recall that capacitance is defined as the ratio of charge per voltage. So if you move that around a little bit, you can say voltage is charge divided by capacitance. If I divide both sides of this equation by capacitance, I would have an equation that relates voltage, saying that the voltage at any time, either across the capacitor or across the resistor, because they have to equal each other in this discharge circuit, think about Kirchhoff's loop ideas. The voltage at any time is equal to the maximum voltage, or V0, that I had at time 0 across the plates of the capacitor, again, times this same natural exponential function raised to the power of minus T over RC. One more, recall that current is the slope of a graph of charge versus time. So if you take the slope of this graph, you start out with a pretty high negative slope, and then the slope is more and is still negative as you proceed down the curve, but the slope value is less and less and less. And so it turns out that the current is also described by a similar relationship. I0 would be the current that's in the system at time 0. And so the current at any time is this I0 times e to the minus t over RC. Some of you may recall from math classes that the derivative of an exponential function is in fact another exponential function, which is sort of the mathematical structure behind that slope idea. All right, what do we get if we have a charging capacitor? Well, again, camera flash, you need to, after you discharge the thing through the flash bulb, the capacitor needs to connect to the batteries in the camera so that it can charge back up and be ready to produce a flash again. So that charging loop involves not only some resistance in the circuit, but also some sort of power supply, something that's providing voltage, here shown as a battery with voltage V0. Well, unlike the discharging one, right, here the charge on the plates is actually increasing as a function of time. And so typically we either write the charge that as a function of time is equal to the maximum charge that you will achieve, or shown here, I've substituted that with the capacitance times the potential difference of the battery, which are equal mathematically to the amount of charge this capacitor will be storing. And now we use the inverse exponential function, if you will, 1 minus e to the minus t over RC, because I want something that is 0 to start with and then achieves a maximum value when the time is a maximum value in that expression. E to the 0 power is 1, so everything in parentheses here will start out at 0. And e to the really big negative number is 0, so I'm going to end up with the parentheses being 1 at the end of time, which will be when I have my maximum charge stored in this capacitor. Again, typically you see this also written as a voltage, because voltage is something you can much more easily measure in an electric circuit. So the voltage as a function of time is the voltage of the battery, which is what the capacitor will achieve when it is fully charged, times this 1 minus e to the minus t over RC. Current is the only one that's a little bit different here. Recall again, current is the slope of a charge versus time graph, and the current is actually going to be described here. It's going to be maximum at the beginning and minimum at the end. So the current flowing through the circuit actually follows the same mathematical pattern as the current flowing through a discharging circuit. You observed this if you did the lab, because in both charging and discharging, the light bulb goes on brightly initially, and then it fades out over time, indicative of a decreasing current in that circuit. So I just want to show how you would use these mathematical models to solve a couple of problems before we wrap up this lecture. Just one comment, that product of resistance and current in the denominator is often called the time constant when you're talking about capacitor problems, and it's often abbreviated with the Greek letter tau instead. So we'll make use of that in one of these sample problems. All right, so apologies for the fuzzy image that I grabbed from somewhere, but hopefully you can still see this is a circuit that involves a battery that has an EMF of 10 volts. Again, I'm just treating it as an ideal battery and never having it different than 10 volts. A resistance of 5 ohms, a capacitance of 0.1 farads or 100 millifarads. We want to know 3 things. What is the current at B just after the switch is closed? How much charge will have passed B by the time the current goes to 0? And how much current will there be at the instant the capacitor has a charge of 0.2 coulombs of charge? All right, let's go ahead and figure those things out. So the first one, the current at B just after the switch is closed. Recall that in both the charging and discharging circuits you observed, you get the maximum amount of current after the switch is closed. And you can use Kirchhoff's ideas to help explain this. If I add up around the circuit, I increase by 10 volts going across the battery, but my initially uncharged capacitor has no potential difference across it. So that means the potential difference across the resistor has to initially be 10 volts, and that's when I get the maximum current. So the potential difference across the resistor is 10 volts, again using Kirchhoff's loop rules. And then if I use Ohm's law, I can say, well, the current at point B is going to be the same as the current that's flowing through the resistor. Everywhere in that loop, except between the plates of the capacitor, the current's the same. So that's the potential difference across the resistor divided by its resistance. Well, as the problem tells us, that's going to be a 10 volt potential difference across the resistor. The resistor has 5 ohms of resistance, so that's 2 amps of current. That's the current when I start, and then it's going to be dropping off from there over time. All right, how about question B? How much charge will have passed B by the time the current goes to 0? Well, this is one where there's an easy way and a hard way if you run into this problem, because again, it says how much current will have passed point B, and you can imagine that's going to be really hard to solve, because if I think about that exponential function for current, how do I add up all the amount of charges that are passing by point B over time? Because initially it's a lot, right? 2 amps, 2 coulombs every second, but that only lasts for a fraction of a second, and then it's a little bit less. And boy, I need some calculus to do this. If you were going to analyze point B, that is true, but one thing to keep in mind is that every charge that passes point B has to end up on the capacitor when the capacitor is fully charged. So if I solve for how much charge does the capacitor hold when it's fully charged, well, then I know how much charge flowed past point B. The capacitor is going to hold an amount of charge that can be figured out by the capacitance definition. Capacitance is charge over potential difference. So the charge is the capacitance times the potential difference. And if I plug things in here, that's 0.1 farads of capacitance. The potential difference when the capacitor is fully charged is going to be 10 volts. So I have 1 coulomb of charge that capacitor is going to store when it is fully charged. That means 1 coulomb of charge also flowed past point B. The final question in this problem was to find the current at the instant the capacitor has a charge of 0.2 coulombs. And so that's where we're going to need to dig into our models that have the natural exponential function. So for a charging capacitor, rather, the amount of charge that's stored at a certain time is given by Q0, which is like that maximum amount of charge I'm going to achieve, times 1 minus e to the minus t over RC. Well, we already know that the maximum amount of charge from our work in part B is 1 coulomb of charge that's going to be stored there. So I'm just going to symbolically manipulate this here. I'm going to divide both sides by Q0. Then I'm going to move the e to the left and the ratio of the charges to the right. So I have e to the minus t over RC equals 1 minus q at some amount of time divided by q naught. Then I need to undo that natural exponential function. And so recall from your work in math, probably in a high school class, that a natural log function is what undoes a natural exponential function. So I need to take the natural log of both sides here. That means the left side is going to reduce to a minus t over RC, and that's equal to the natural log of 1 minus the charge at any time over the maximum charge. Well, I'm going to multiply through by RC on both sides, so I get time equals minus RC times that natural log. Then I'm going to plug in numbers. Some people like to plug in numbers at the beginning. I'm lazy. I don't like to write all the numbers in the units all the way through, so I try to hang on as long as possible. Well, if we have the resistance of 5 ohms, the capacitance of 0.1 farads, and then we're looking at the time when the charge is 0.2 coulombs, or 20% of what it was when it is fully charged. That's 1 minus 0.2, which is 0.8. The natural log of 0.8 is a negative value. Punch that all into the calculator, and you get a positive time here, 0.11 seconds. So 0.11 seconds is the time that we've identified when the capacitor has been 20% charged. And then we can take that into the model that tells us the current at any time. The current at any time is the maximum current, which again was the beginning current, times e to the minus t over RC. The maximum current, again, recall from solving A, was 2 amps. And then I plug in my 0.11 seconds, my 5 ohms, my 0.1 farads, and I find that the amount of current was 1.6 amps at the moment when the capacitor was 20% charged. Just going to do one more of these sample problems to illustrate the general process here. Here we have a 15 kilo ohm resistor and a capacitor that are connected in series, and then a 12 volt potential difference is suddenly applied across them. The potential difference across the capacitor rises to 5 volts, and that takes 1.3 microseconds. So what's the time constant of the circuit, and what is the capacitance in the capacitor? You don't have to do so, but I always find myself sketching the circuit so I can sort of visualize what's happening and how things are arranged. So these could be in different orders in the loop, but I'd have to have a 12-volt battery, a 15 kilo ohm resistor, and some unknown capacitor. Well, in order to find that time constant, recall that time constant tau is the product of the resistance and the capacitance. We can rewrite this potential difference equation for a charging capacitor. So the potential difference at any time is equal to the maximum potential that it'll achieve, that of the battery, times 1 minus e to the minus t over RC. Well, from there, I'm just going to replace RC with tau, since tau is what I'm looking for in this solution. And then I'm going to divide both sides by V naught. Then I'm going to do what I did previously, put the exponential term on the left, take the voltage ratio over on the right, take the natural log of both of those sides to undo the natural exponential function. That'll just leave me with minus t over tau equals the natural log of 1 minus that voltage ratio. And then if I solve for tau, tau is going to be minus t over the natural log of 1 minus that voltage ratio. Then I can plug in my numbers. So in 1.3 microseconds, I plug that in for my time. And at that 1.3 microseconds, the potential difference across the capacitor is 5 volts. Eventually, it'll be 12 volts when it matches the battery. So I plug those in for the voltage at a given time and the maximum voltage it will achieve. And when I crank all of that out in the calculator, I get a very short time, 2.4 times 10 to the minus 6 seconds. That is the time constant here for the circuit. It doesn't really mean anything other than it is the product of the resistance and the capacitance, and it can be used to think about how long it'll take an RC circuit to do something. But let's do part B so we can figure out the capacitance of this capacitor. Since this time constant is, in fact, the product of RC, capacitance is then the time constant divided by the resistance. So if I take the 2.4 times 10 to the minus 6 seconds for the time constant and divide it by the value of the resistor, the 15 kilo ohms, that's 15 times 10 to the third, I get a capacitance that is 1.61 times 10 to the minus 10 farads. That would be 0.16 nanofarads, a fairly small value of capacitance. But I would expect it to be fairly small given the fact that it takes only microseconds for it to go from 0 volts up to, 40% of the maximum voltage that we'll achieve. There can't be that much capacitance in the circuit. If it was a big capacitor, it would take much, much longer to achieve that status.